Last week, the U.S. Senate voted 60-40 to pass a continuing resolution to end the record-long 41-day government shutdown. This measure would reopen much of the government, funding it through January 30th, with some agencies funded until the end of next September. The stopgap funding bill was approved after a month-plus impasse that resulted in missed paychecks for millions of federal workers, delays in food assistance, and air travel disruptions. 7 Democrats and 1 independent senator joined nearly all Senate Republicans in voting for the bill. The key components of the funding package include reversing Trump administration reductions in force of federal employees during the shutdown, and protections against further layoffs until the end of January. There are promises of back pay for at least a portion of federal employees. This also includes 3 appropriations bills, one of which fully funds the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program through September 30th of 2026. This deal does not include an extension of subsidies for Affordable Care Act health insurance premiums, which are slated to expire later this year. Most Democrats had previously refused to vote for a funding measure without a concrete path to preserve these subsidies. Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican of South Dakota, stated he would hold a vote by mid-December on a Democrat-chosen bill to extend the expiring subsidies. He had insisted throughout the shutdown that Republicans would only negotiate on the subsidies once the government was reopened. Senator Susan Collins, Republican of Maine, hailed the vote as a great victory for the American people, showing that the Senate can work together. Senator Tim Kaine, Democrat of Virginia, defended the compromise, telling NPR there was no guarantee that waiting would get us a better result, but there was a guarantee that waiting would impose suffering on more everyday people. The majority of Senate Democrats, however, disagreed that this was the best possible deal. Following recent Democratic election victories, some senators felt it was a mistake to back down, doubting Republicans would agree to extend the subsidies without the leverage of an ongoing shutdown. Senator Tammy Baldwin, Democrat of Wisconsin, expressed her opposition on the floor, saying a handshake deal with my Republican colleagues to reopen the government and no guarantee to actually lower costs is simply not good enough. The agreement to end the shutdown was reached over the weekend by a bipartisan group of senators after weeks of intermittent talks. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, Democrat of New Hampshire, a driver of the bipartisan negotiations, noted that more than 8 members of the Democratic caucus had initially pledged to support the deal, but some withdrew their support before the vote. The House had been alerted by its leadership that members will receive 36 hours notice to return to Capitol Hill for the vote. The chamber had not conducted official business since passing its version of a continuing resolution back in mid-September. Speaker Mike Johnson, noting at the time the ongoing shutdown related air travel delays, and urged members to begin right now returning to the Hill the moment the Senate passed the bill. Ultimately, this vote is not a solution to the underlying issues that caused the shutdown. In fact, this continuing resolution merely delays efforts to correct the failures of Trump's big, ineffective bill. Why is this important? The potential repeal of the Affordable Care Act, ACA, poses significant risks. Millions would lose their health insurance, and many others would face higher premiums and increased out-of-pocket costs, possibly destabilizing insurance markets. Key negative impacts include a loss of coverage where millions would become uninsured, increased costs for anyone who manages to keep their coverage through out-of-pocket expenses would rise, especially for people with pre-existing conditions. Then there's the elimination of protections, which impacts essential benefits, coverage, and limits on lifetime spending that would be removed. This will have a disproportionate impact, particularly on vulnerable populations who would be particularly affected. Ultimately, this could result in an overall public health decline in the overall population health as a result. In short, this will increase the cost for the average American, either in the form of higher premiums or down the line as economic strain prevents proper medical care, allowing easily treatable conditions to worsen. And there is no alternative on offer. The Republicans have already made it clear they want to kill the ACA. A handshake promise is not a binding legal agreement. Republicans have tried more than 70 times over the past 15 years to weaken or kill the ACA, but their campaign kept backfiring. This time, when the time to vote comes up again, I predict that even bringing up the ACA will be stopped. Thomas Carlyle said, "For he who has health has hope, and he who has hope has everything." This is nothing less than a direct form of control over the masses. Keep us sick, scared, and fighting each other over artificially limited resources, and watch us eat each other alive while they maintain their power and wealth. We have time to make our voices heard. Make them aware that we all know what they are doing. Make them realize that there will be consequences for these actions. That's all for this week. Until next time, remember, your voice is vital. Stand up, speak out, strike back. They don't know what they started. If you appreciate this content, please like, share, and subscribe. For updates, ring the bell. Your support truly helps the channel.